Hi there. So you want to get into Sauder, but you don't quite have those high school grades, but you still want to find out how you can do it? Come join me and let's find out how I did it. University can be a lot of things. It's exciting, it's a place to grow and learn, and it can even be a place to meet new people and explore new passions. But I think one thing that a lot of people forget about is it's a really scary and stressful place. And that all starts from the beginning, your application. So today I wanted to talk to you guys about how I got into the UBC Sauder School of Business with about a B average in high school, and I want to share with you guys some tips about my application and how I think I stood out from other students. Alright, so let me start off by clarifying a couple things here. I was a second year transfer student, I was also a domestic student, and I've lived my entire life in Vancouver. And I also just finished up my second year in Sauder. Alright, so the reason that I wanted to make this video is back when I was applying to university, I would always search for videos on, how people got into university or how they got into Sauder or into UBC, and I want to see what other people were doing. And one thing I noticed is nobody really shared the same story that I had. Now that I'm in UBC, I think back to it and I feel like there's a lot of other people who share the same story that I do, and so I want to tell them how I was able to do it. So to fully understand my story, I think we're gonna have to go back a couple of years to when I was in high school. Throughout high school, I understood that academics was important, but it was not my main priority. I was an athlete first and a student second. Because of this, my grades really struggled, especially in my grade 12 year. I was really good at math and science, but I just really struggled with English. And the grade 12 English Provincial was actually the reason why I took a year off of university. So I ended up taking the English Provincial twice, and I think both times I scored a 64, and I ended up finishing with a 68 in English 12, which was just not what I was really hoping for. And I think that's what really separates my story from other people's stories, is I wasn't one of those kids who had an A+ average or got 99 overalls in all of their courses. I was just like everyone else. So here I was. I had almost failed grade 12 English, and I just did not perform as well as I wanted to in my grade 12 year. Alright, cut to the summer. I was feeling a bit down about my grades, but I ended up getting a great opportunity, and I ended up being signed by a junior A hockey team in California, and I thought this was a great opportunity for me to move to a different country at the age of 18 and really gain more life experiences. And that was really exciting to me because I got to really branch out from high school and experience the world for what it actually is. And at the same time, this provided a really good opportunity for me to really work on my social skills and how I interacted with others, because I was living in a house with 11 other people. So after my exciting year in California, I came back to Vancouver to start my journey with academics. Because I didn't really have the best grades in high school, I enrolled at Douglas College, and that's where I spent my first year of university/college. When I enrolled at Douglas, I knew that I was not going to be finishing there, and I had my heart set on going to UBC and attending Sauder to study business. Because of how competitive Sauder is, I knew that I had to do everything I could when I was at Douglas to get the best grades that I could. And unfortunately, this meant that I had to sacrifice a lot of stuff. My first year, I really didn't do a whole lot. I spent all of my time studying and didn't party at all. And I skipped out on a lot of chance to hang out with friends, which I really don't recommend you guys do. If you guys can find a way to do it better than I did, I suggest you do it that way, because I did not have very much fun in my first year. Earlier I said that I really struggled with English, and so I spent a lot of my time at Douglas focusing on my writing and getting better at that. And I was really happy with the results. I ended up getting a 92 on our final paper in academic writing, and I finished the course with a 90. So after I finished my first year at Douglas, I ended up finishing off with a 3.99 GPA, or a 90% overall average. This is going to lead me into the first tip that I have for you guys, and that's to plan your route ahead of time. I made the mistake of trying to figure everything out as I went along, and that led to a lot of consequences. Some of those consequences included the fact that I wasn't going to be able to meet both the requirements for UBC and SFU, and I had to choose between them. I also took a lot of courses that I didn't actually need to take, and this is going to lead me into the second part of this tip, and that's to phone somebody ahead of time and figure out what you can and what you can't take. I thought that I was only allowed to take a certain amount of commerce courses, and when I got to UBC and talked to a lot of other transfer students, it turns out that they were able to take some of the courses I didn't think we could take. I highly recommend to take your accounting courses at college, and also maybe take something like marketing. Alright, so I did my time at Douglas, I got the grades that I needed, and now came the important part, the application. So when I applied to university, I applied to 3 schools: UBC, Queen's, and Western. I applied to Sauder as my #1 choice and Queen's Smith School of Business as my backup. And then I also applied to Western Economics, and that was my safety net. And I have to say that UBC's application was by far the most extensive. Sauder's application consists of 3 parts. You have the 3 long answers, 5 short answers about your hobbies, work experiences, or your volunteer work, and then the last part, which is the scariest, but I actually don't think it really should be the scariest, and that's the recorded interview. This is gonna lead into tip number 2, and that's that academics aren't everything. Sauder's application consists of 2 parts. You have your academics and your transcript, and then the other half is your supplementary application. And each of those are weighed evenly. Personally, for me, the supplementary application is what set me apart from others. I was able to talk about all the experiences that I had gone through, and some of those experiences included my time at Douglas College and how I thought it was a close-knit community and how that shaped me into the student I am now. Another thing that I got to talk about was my time playing hockey and how after I stopped playing, I was able to go back to the sport that I loved and become a coach, and that was the volunteer work that I did. And the last thing I got to talk about was the fact that I traveled to Europe and I lived in another country for a full year when I was 18 years old, and how those life experiences shaped me into who I am. So, tip number 3, use the qualities that Sauder cares about the most in every aspect of your application. I believe Sauder has stated that their top qualities are leadership, respect, responsibility, resourcefulness, and resiliency. An example of how I incorporated these into my application is I trained to become a lifeguard and I passed all of my courses, and I never actually ended up getting a job as a lifeguard, but one night when I was driving home from work, I saw somebody get hit by a car, and I was able to step in and make sure that the person got the care that they needed and make sure that everything was all right. And that was one way of how I demonstrated my resourcefulness and my resiliency. All right, so we have the dreaded interview. I saved this up until the last minute and I did not want to do it. I was really scared that I had put in all the work and gotten the grades I needed, and I had done really well in my written section, and I was scared that I did all of this stuff and I was gonna screw it up in one moment. And I think something important to realize is that's just one small bit of your application. It's not the entire thing, and it's not the only thing they're looking for. And I believe that their main purpose for it is just to make sure that you can speak English and you can present properly. That's one thing that's really important in Sauder. It's being able to participate and talk in class and share your ideas. I believe every class in Sauder has at least 10% participation, so I know it's a pretty important thing. All right, now I'm gonna hit you guys with tip number 4. Be yourself during your interview. I can't stress it anymore. Don't overreact to the interview. When you get your questions, instantly try and relate it to something that you know you can talk about, and then talk about that. Because they're not really looking for what's in your answer, they're looking at the way you can speak. Make sure that you speak clearly and that you don't do any weird actions. Make sure you stand up straight, you have a nice dress clothes on, and you look straight into the camera, because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for your ability to present. Is this person confident? Do they know what they're doing? So for the interview, take a deep breath, relax, maybe prep some stuff in advance on what you want to say, but otherwise just go into it knowing that you're going to get some questions that maybe you won't be able to answer, and you're going to have to do your best to relate it to something that you can talk about, and then try and go back to the question at hand and make sure you directly answer it. All right, I'm done. I submitted my application, I did everything, I'm ready to go. Unfortunately, that's not the truth. There's one last part to the application: waiting. And this is gonna lead me to tip number 5. Be patient. I had to wait a long time to get my response. I submitted my application in January. I heard back from Western in February, and I didn't hear back from UBC until June 10th. So there was a long gap in between that, and I was really scared. I think it's also really important not to look into what it means by how long they're taking. When I was waiting, I talked to a few people who I knew had transferred, and one of them said they got their acceptance back in February. I don't think it really means anything. UBC is gonna do what they're gonna do, and you just have to wait and be patient. I don't think you should think further ahead than you actually really should. I think you just need to relax. So, like I said, I finally got my acceptance in June 10th, and I was so excited. I remember when I woke up that morning, I rolled over and looked at my phone and saw I had an email from UBC, and in the description it said congratulations, and I threw my phone. I was like, no way, this is incredible. I was so excited. So be patient. Your time's gonna come and you're gonna be excited. All right guys, and that's how I got into UBC. So just a quick recap for you. Tip number 1, plan your route ahead of time if you're gonna transfer. Tip number 2, academics isn't everything. Tip number 3, use qualities that Sauder cares about the most in your application and use them as much as you can. Tip number 4, Be yourself during the interview and make sure that you can relate whatever the question is to a topic that you know how to talk about. And finally, tip number 5. Be patient. It might take 4 months, it might take 2 months. We don't know, and I don't think that means anything about whether you're getting accepted or denied. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed my story, and I hope it sheds a little bit of light on how I got into solder and how you can separate yourself from others. If you guys have any other questions about my experience, feel free to ask me in the comments section. If you guys want to subscribe to my channel, feel free to. I'm going to continue to put out content about my time at university, as well as my progression through learning different skills, and I hope to teach you guys a few things along the way. Bye.